June 28, 1928, the sleepy town of Wine, California, awoke to a horror that would stain its name forever. A chicken coop, a rusted metal door, and the lifeless bodies of 3 boys, their throats slashed, their futures snuffed out in a single brutal night. The discovery ignited a frenzy of fear, suspicion, and a relentless hunt for the man behind the carnage, Gordon Stewart Northcott. Gordon Northcott was not a stranger to the shadows of the American West. Born in 1906 in the rugged mining town of Alberta, Canada, he grew up amid the harshness of frontier life, a place where lawlessness often eclipsed order. By his early teens, Northcott had slipped across the border, seeking work in the booming lumber and agricultural camps of Southern California. He settled in the small community of Wine, a cluster of farmhouses and chicken coops that dotted the San Bernardino foothills, where he found employment as a handyman for the wealthy Lily and Walter Smith, owners of the notorious Chicken Coop Ranch. It was in that isolated, sun-baked compound that Northcott began to weave a web of deception and terror. He married a teenage girl named Sarah Louise Leila Millette, who was only 16 at the time, and together they cultivated a farm that doubled as a front for a more sinister enterprise. Neighbors whispered about the strange men who arrived at the coop under the cover of night, about the faint cries that sometimes rose from the barnyard, but no one imagined the depth of Northcott's depravity. The tragedy that shattered Wine began in early 1928 when a teenage boy named Sammy Clark, a drifter who had been taken in by Northcott's family, vanished without a trace. The boy's disappearance set off a chain of frantic inquiries that led the sheriff's department to a grim revelation. The bodies of 3 young boys, Walter Bud K. McCarty, 12, Charles Clem C. Floyd, 12, and Sanford Clark, 13, were found concealed beneath a slab of concrete in the coop's basement. The victims had been bound, gagged, and brutally murdered, their throats cut with a knife that left clean, precise incisions, an indication of a methodical, cold-blooded killer. Detective James J. Benson of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office spearheaded the investigation. For weeks, he combed through the coop's dilapidated rooms, interrogated laborers, and followed a trail of blood-stained footprints that led straight to the Northcott property. A break came when a teenage worker, Alonzo Lonnie Parker, confessed that Northcott had forced him to help move the bodies, and that the murders were part of a business aimed at kidnapping and selling boys to a wealthy couple from San Francisco who desired male servants for their estate. The confession sealed the fate of Gordon Northcott, who was arrested on July 24, 1928, and charged with kidnapping, murder, and the unlawful transportation of minors across state lines. The trial, held in Los Angeles County Superior Court, became a media sensation. The courtroom was packed with curious onlookers, newspaper reporters with their typewriters clacking like a marching army, and the anguished families of the victims. Prosecutor John C. Miller painted Northcott as a sadistic predator, a man who lured vulnerable boys with promises of work, then subjected them to unspeakable cruelty for profit. He introduced damning evidence: a blood-stained axe found in the coop's shed, letters from the mysterious San Francisco couple demanding the boys, and the testimony of Leila Millette, who broke down on the stand, revealing that Northcott had forced her to witness the murders, her screams muffled by the clamor of the coop's chickens. The defense, led by the seasoned attorney William K. Harris, attempted to portray Northcott as a victim of circumstance, a man driven to crime by poverty and a manipulative wife. Harris introduced a series of character witnesses: a former employer who recalled Northcott's hard-working nature, a neighbor who claimed the boy's disappearance was the typical wanderer's fate. He tried to cast doubt on the prosecution's timeline, suggesting that the bodies could have been placed by an unknown third party. Yet each of these arguments crumbled under the weight of forensic evidence and the harrowing testimonies of the surviving victims. The autopsies conducted by Dr. Harold M. Holliday provided the chilling scientific backbone of the case. The coroner's report detailed the precise nature of the throat cuts, an incision just below the Adam's apple, deep enough to sever the carotid artery in seconds. The wounds exhibited a single, clean blade strike, indicating a practiced hand. Toxicology reports showed no evidence of drugs or sedatives, confirming that the boys were alive and aware at the moment of death. Additionally, the bodies bore signs of prolonged confinement, bruised ribs, broken ribs from being bound in cramped spaces, and abrasions consistent with being dragged across rough wooden floors. The forensic findings matched the prosecution's narrative of premeditated murder. On September 9, 1928, after a 10-day trial, the jury deliberated for just 3 hours before returning a verdict of guilty on all counts. Northcott was sentenced to death by hanging, a sentence that would be carried out on December 7, 1929, in the gas chamber at San Quentin State Prison, making him one of the first Californians to meet that fate. His execution was witnessed by a small, somber crowd, including the mother of Walter McCarty, who wept openly as the gallows creaked. The grim ceremony closed a chapter of terror, but the ripples of the case would echo for decades. Subscribe to the Autopsy Files for more stories like this.